Oh, hi. Welcome to the Phi Beta Kappa induction for Northwestern for 2020. Thank you for attending this year, the induction of our students to the Phi Beta Kappa Alpha chapter of Illinois. In this trying year, I am grateful today that we can recognize these students' outstanding achievements. I wish I could meet you all in person afterwards and congratulate you in person. But at least we get to have this reception and celebration. We're recognizing today these students' outstanding commitment to the liberal arts and their contributions to the Northwestern community. And we also welcome other faculty, family, and friends of these students who are sharing this moment with us. Before we start, I'd like to introduce the Phi Beta Kappa board for the chapter. Phi Beta Kappa is made up of the faculty and staff who were inducted to the Honor Society as undergraduates in their respective colleges. So our president is Nick Davis. He's associate professor of English and Gender and Sexuality Studies, and he's Phi Beta Kappa from Harvard Alpha of Massachusetts chapter. Our vice president is Elizabeth Pardo. She is the director of the Office of Fellowships, and her Phi Beta Kappa is from this very chapter, Northwestern Alpha of Illinois. I'm the secretary, Deborah Rosenberg, and my co-secretaries this year were Shelby Hatch and Rosemary Bush. I'm Weinberg College advisor and assistant professor of instruction in the Department of Spanish and Portuguese. I'm Wesleyan Gamma of Connecticut. Rosemary Bush is a Weinberg College advisor and assistant professor of instruction in the University of, and her chapter was University of Colorado. Shelby Hatch is Weinberg College advisor and assistant professor of instruction in the chemistry department, and she is Phi Beta Kappa from the College of Worcester. And finally, our treasurer is Michael Mountainfort, Weinberg College advisor, a lot of Weinberg College advisor, and assistant professor of instruction in the Department of Mathematics. He is Phi Beta Kappa, Cornell Theta of New York. And a special shout out to the Dean's Office, especially Kelly Daniels, Ann Marshall, and Rebecca Soroki for all the work over the months with which they've helped organize today's event. Now I'm going to introduce the Dean of the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, Adrian Randolph, who will provide some congratulatory remarks.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually a little uncertain how many of you there are out there. We don't get to see you in this interface, so I'm imagining I'm speaking to thousands of people. Welcome. Today, we're delighted to celebrate the achievements of the new inductees. As many of you know, there are many Greek letter societies in the United States, but none are more ancient and revered than Phi Beta Kappa. Phi Beta Kappa was founded in 1776 in the heat of revolution. And it's remarkable that at the very turbulent origin of this country, a group of individuals chose to assemble to promote the values of, quote, and this is from the foundational documents, personal freedom, scientific inquiry, liberty of conscious and creative endeavor. It really is a testament to the long, the long timeline of thinking about these issues in the United States that I think is heartening, even in moments of turmoil, that people were looking far ahead. That's certainly a lesson we can take today. I'm a proud member of the Alpha of New Hampshire at Dartmouth College, founded about a decade later after the founding of Phi Beta Kappa in 1787. Northwestern's chapter was formed about a century later, a little bit more, in 1889, after the first sort of revolutionary wave of chapter foundations. And the ideals of Phi Beta Kappa lie at the very epicenter, I think, of US higher education and what has come to be known as the liberal or free arts, what today we in the college call the interdisciplinary arts and sciences. This mode of education, the liberal arts, is really intertwined with the history of this country. 17 US presidents, 39 US Supreme Court justices, and more than 130 Nobel laureates have been inducted as members. So the bar is high. Please try to clear that bar and enter our legal, political, and research worlds and transform them in ways that we can't imagine now. As some of you may know, the letters Phi, Beta, and Kappa are an acronym. They're not simply randomly chosen, but represent three words: philosophia, bio, gubernetes. These are Greek words that stand for philosophy, philosophia, which I'm sure you all know from your SAT preparation times, the love of wisdom. Bio, as in biology, means life, so life. And gubernetes is really the Greek word for the steers person or helms person. And it's the root of governor, if you think about it that way. Gubernetes, governor, it sounds rather similar. And so really, the words behind Phi, Beta, and Kappa mean literally love of learning is the guide of life, is the steering, sort of the steers person of life. And this really is at the heart of what the liberal or free arts mean in the degree you will be receiving at graduation. Now, the words artes liberales, it's a term that arose in the Middle Ages and Renaissance, the 14th to 15th century. It's a period I happen to work on. I'm an art historian. And they describe that period when they were first coming into being, realms of knowledge that were not linked to the mechanical arts, that is, making things, and things that were sort of produced for material profit. The free arts were meant to be freed from the necessity of serving a particular outcome. They were meant to roam, if you think of knowledge for the sake of knowledge, for its own sake. This was sort of the idea. So philosophy, for example, was to be pursued not because it would lead to material profit or to some particular outcome, but rather that it might lead to less tangible, yet nonetheless essential goods. And this notion of the free arts came to be a cornerstone in the education in general in the early modern period. But it was only really in the United States in the 19th century especially, actually the 18th and 19th century especially, that it came to be understood as the liberal arts in the way we still consider it today in higher education. And it's certainly evolved over the last 2 centuries since Phi Beta Kappa was founded. Originally, it offered students the ability to study ancient languages and theology, to develop the tools to join the professional classes as lawyers or clerics, something like that. Later, as the study of science in the 19th century became more important, it represented the mingling of various realms of knowledge. And that really is reflected today if you think about our 3 fundamental divisions of the college, the humanities, the social sciences, and the sciences. Although they've become much more complex, basically it's that mingling across those realms that was really the innovation of the liberal arts in the US system of higher education. Charles William Eliot, president of Harvard, described it this way in 1869, and his words, I think, still have resonance today. The endless controversies whether language, philosophy, mathematics, or science supplies the best mental training, whether general education should be chiefly literary or chiefly scientific, have no practical lesson for us today. This university recognizes no real antagonism between literature and science and consents to no such narrow alternatives as mathematics or classics, science or metaphysics. We would have them all and at their best. Now, this notion of having it all is precisely the ethos of the liberal arts and of Phi Beta Kappa. Today, we call it, as I said, the interdisciplinary arts and sciences, a mode of pedagogy and learning that privileges crossing disciplinary boundaries rather than solely investing within them. And it's not to say we don't care about depth, we do. We absolutely want people to pursue, and many of you did, I think, in your studies, pursue depth. But we also love this idea of students crossing over the boundaries and therefore informing different areas of knowledge with their experiences in different fields. And this means we actually demand of you in framing our curricular requirements that you don't take just one field. The major is, of course, a very important element in any student's education at Weinberg College, but we care equally about the other things, whether you're fulfilling them through distribution requirements or simply exploring through your own curiosity the curriculum. And this is if you think about it, some of you probably did double major or add a minor, but really the major itself is less than the third of the curriculum you study in a general student's passage through our curriculum, which gives you a sense of its role. It's one role, but the degree is really weighted by these other 2/3, which are intended to open up horizons for you that are beyond just study in one area. Now, it's clear that the interdisciplinary arts and sciences has worked. There are many things to criticize about higher education and its results, and trust me, we criticize ourselves all the time, especially, I think, humanists. We're very aware of our shortcomings, but there seems to be little doubt that the creativity at the heart of a system that encourages broad, interdisciplinary thinking is of value to our society, and indeed all societies around the globe. It's perhaps not obvious, but this type of degree is actually very distinctive and very rare. A liberal arts degree is, I don't know, have the statistic off the top of my head, but it's certainly probably less than 5% of the undergraduate degrees offered in the United States. And the United States is distinctive for offering it. It is not the norm. Around the world, most places, most educational systems of higher education offer degrees in particular fields. So if you get a degree in French, you studied French and perhaps not other things. At least this is the case in I grew up in England, and in Britain, really all of my friends at age 17 chose what they would study in college and university. And they chose one area. It's not a choice for most students. It's changed a bit because the US mode of education is now being exported and picked up both in the UK and in Europe, and I'm sure in other parts of the world. But really, this is a very distinctive degree to the United States. And while sometimes we think the value of an education is certainly in the courses one takes, or, as many students think, in the extracurricular life that accompanies higher education in the US, to my mind, what is really perhaps valuable but overlooked or unacknowledged in our education is really the space between the classes one chooses to take. And that's not to say literally the space, but rather the intellectual space that's opened up by you being stretched to take courses in a variety of different areas. This, I think, opens up and gives breathing room to the mind as you face challenges and opportunities in the years that come. And it's this element of choice that allows you to move around the curriculum, although we limit it through distribution requirements to some degree. That's another attribute of the liberal arts, this freedom to give students the responsibility to choose the path through the liberal arts for their own education. I'm sure you remember, as I do, vividly, the existential fear one had in choosing the wrong courses or making those choices late at night about what one should take. This, although it's challenging, is really one of the things that marks, I think, our educational system is very different from other modes. There is no fixed curriculum per se, but rather students develop the maturity to choose their own path through the curriculum in ways that I think have benefits for both you now, but I think also in the future. So I believe fully in the necessity for a robust interdisciplinarity intersecting with, this interdisciplinarity intersecting with radical interdisciplinarity. And the radical interdisciplinarity also happens in emerging fields, many of which you would have studied in the areas, the new sort of programs and departments in ethnic studies, in gender and sexuality studies, in area studies, all that have sort of come into being in the last 50 years. And in some ways, the mode of education we're trying to convey is one that values the depth of the major with the breadth of trying to stretch in those directions. And the goal is really for you both to develop skills, right? I hope you come out, I hope you speak well and write well and are numerate in ways you couldn't have imagined just a few years ago. But we also want you to carry into your lives the mindset of growing, adapting, and being able to learn continually in the years to come. And the hope is that the liberal arts is not just a static thing that happens while you're an undergraduate in university, but also is this constantly evolving intersection with thinking at the highest levels through your lives. And I know that's not always realistic. Some of us get swamped by the realities of the present, our responsibilities, but I hope that you are bitten, as many of us were, by the bug of curiosity while you were in university. And I think that's one of the bequests of the liberal arts, that throughout one's life, one has that constant desire to learn more. And so I hope that you continue to read, continue to look at art, film, and other material products that are creative and spur you to thinking in some way deeply about the world in which you live. And I hope that this education sustains you in that way through some of the very difficult times, both now and of course we all face through our lives, but of course we're facing some very difficult times now. We absolutely want Northwestern and our students, our faculty, our staff to be safe in this challenging pandemic. But I also want to realize and reflect on how the interdisciplinary thinking at the heart of something like Phi Beta Kappa contains within it the seeds for solutions, both in terms of the scientific technical solutions to the pandemic, but also some of the social scientific data necessary to confront the racism and injustice that we see in our world. And also from the humanities and creative fields, the ability to reflect on what it is to be human at a time when the very notion of humanity is both conceptually, but also physically sometimes under threat. So I hope that our education can contribute not only meaningfully and powerfully, but positively in the years to come. And I hope that you join in that effort and have success, have happiness and contentment, but also find meaning in your life built on the foundation that you have built through your curricular choices at Northwestern. So I know this is a day of celebration. I wish I could be with you physically, but we're with you via Zoom and via the good vibes that we're all sending through this digital media to you as you celebrate your graduation. Congratulations. I want to thank, before leaving, all of my conspirators involved in putting this together. Thank you so much for the labor that it took. And I want to thank also especially the families of all the graduates. I know from personal experience that college is not something that one person succeeds at. We are celebrating the graduates and you deserve praise, but we also need to acknowledge the ways in which our friends, our family, our loved ones sustain us through the path to this success. So thank you all to the many relatives and friends, hopefully who are attending. And thank you for sustaining the students if they've taken the difficult, sometimes challenging path through Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. Be well and congratulations.
Thank you, Dean Randolph. I will start by reading the names of the members of the class of 2021 whom we will induct into Phi Beta Kappa this year. Grace Beck, Miles Bowen, Mari Brady, Jia-Yi Chen, Matthew Cho, Catherine Daler, Camille Duperoux, Emma Eder, Hannah Emmons, Andrew Feldman, Kirti Gopal, Emily Holtzman, Sharias Iyer, Nicholas Karras, Mara Kelly, Jana Kim, Soiran Lee, Stephanie Mbida, Desmond O'Shaughnessy, Eliza Posner, Joseph Ratke, Shiki Shaw. This concludes the reading of the roll.
Members of the class of 2021, in accordance with the rules of this chapter and in consequence of our good opinion of your scholarly attainments in the College of Arts and Sciences at Northwestern University, we have judged you worthy of membership in Phi Beta Kappa. By election of the Alpha Chapter of Illinois, therefore, and in the presence of the members of the Society, I declare you members of the Alpha Chapter of Phi Beta Kappa in the state of Illinois. Congratulations.
I will now read the names of the members of the class of 2020 who were inducted last year before we proceed to inducting seniors from this year's graduating class. Elena Arthurs, Isabella Barber, Dominic Bayer, Lois Biggs, Nell Boris, Maya Dater, Julia Dirksheide, Maxime Gillian, Michelle Guo, Mulan Hua, Rachel Kritzik, Adrian Lafont Mueller, Sari Lee, Seyin Lee, Claire Pack, Wan Chiang Hua, Amos Pomp, Olivia Pura, Amy Rogan, Saeed Sanchez, Rachel So, Mohir Wog, James Walker, and Lucy Yang. I will now read the names of the members of the class of 2020 who will be inducted today. Saeed Aldahari, Dominic Balistreri Fox, Erica Barrios, Maya Benatar, Fina Brady, Ryan Broll, Jeremy Brooks, Alexis Bullock, Leo Carrion, Rohan Chulasani, Huiling Chen, Nicholas Chen, Neil Chin, June Cho, Emily Chua, Luke Samarusti, Samuel Cole, James Crisafulli, Myrna Dababne, Brody Danielson, Bennett Eckert, Sandra Freeman, Grant Glazebrook, Rachel Goldberg, Jacob Gordon, Gabrielle Grossman, Emily Guo, Elizabeth Hawley, Joshua Henderson, Lily Hyman, Sean Hu, Sarah Kobek, Hannah Lachow, Candice LeBlanc, Elizabeth Lee, Aton Lewides, Justin Lin, Xianu Luo, Owen McDonald, Sarah Malik, Martha McCoy, Reed McLaughlin, Henry Molnar, Christopher Mortensen, Jonathan Murray, Alex Neumann, Uday Okabe, William Peck, George Pan, Gian Paulino, April Peng, Elizabeth Perkins, Ben Perry, Michael Postiglione, Andrew Reed, Aubrey Roberts, Carter Rothman, Ella Rubenstein, Pinyanut Sang, Maylin Shi, Maxwell Siegel, Trent Steelman, Gabrielle Struick, Amanda Swanson, Louis Tauber, Lydia Tefera, Cassandra Thomas, Serena Tulani, Thomas Trupek, Hitty Verholt, Meg Young, Tina Zhang, Jinming Zhang, Zhikao Zhang. This concludes the reading of the roll.
Thank you. To the members of the class of 2020, in accordance with the rules of this chapter and in consequence of our good opinion of your scholarly attainments in the College of Arts and Sciences at Northwestern University, We have judged you worthy of membership in Phi Beta Kappa. By election of the Alpha Chapter of Illinois, therefore, and in the presence of the members of the society, I declare you members of the Alpha Chapter of Phi Beta Kappa in the state of Illinois. Congratulations. I hear them clapping too. Everyone I hear clapping. So we normally have a roll book going back through decades for the chapter that you would go and sign during our reception. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, we cannot have you sign this year. We plan to enter hopefully your names or some sort of notation in the roll book once we can access it back on campus. And you will also be receiving your certificate at some time in the future at your permanent address, since we could not hand it out today. Again, I congratulate our new members, and I pass this over now to Nick Davis, our president, for some remarks.
Thank you, Deborah. Congratulations to everyone. My first order of business is to award the Phi Beta Kappa Centennial Prize. So once upon a time, the Phi Beta Kappa Centennial Prize was awarded to the senior inductee with the highest GPA. But in sync with the expansive values of our chapter, this award now recognizes a student not only near the summit of grade point averages, but who also embodies Phi Beta Kappa's ideals of multidisciplinary learning and civic mindedness, and who made an especially rich impression on teachers and campus colleagues. This year's prize goes to James Crisafulli, who earned that rarest of birds, a 4.0 average across all his classes in his political science major and in demanding curricula like the Kaplan Scholars and Brady Scholars programs, and during study abroad at Oxford, and through a summer pursuing the civic engagement track with Chicago Field Studies, and in ambitious electives that consistently highlighted global issues, renewable solutions to old problems. He studied literary and artistic productions as well as political quagmires and experiments around the planet. And we know from one professor who brought James to our attention that he also interned with NGOs and political campaigns and worked as an immigration paralegal and served as a top flight assistant on faculty research. Another professor named James among the 5 all-around best of nearly 1,000 undergraduates they have worked with in their careers. And both of these faculty members harbor absolute optimism in the positive changes James will make in this world. All of us in Phi Beta Kappa agree. Congratulations, Crisafulli family, and congratulations to James. And now for some closing remarks. The Alpha Chapter of Illinois meets today, boldly inducting as we have never inducted before. I congratulate once more our 96 new members and honor again the 24 juniors elected last year. On behalf of the chapter, consisting, as you've heard, of Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences faculty who ourselves were elected to Phi Beta Kappa as undergraduates, I am delighted to be with all of you, your families, and your friends. I will be briefer than I want to be because you have all stared at screens an ungodly amount in recent months, but that delight I mention is not rhetorical. Neither is my gratitude, neither is my respect. As several of you observed in your replies accepting our invitation, this campus abounds in students who are intellectually, politically, and artistically brave, and who have defied significant obstacles in and beyond the classroom to accomplish as much as you have. It never stops being a privilege to teach here, yet even by that high standard, the projects, the aspirations, and the humane achievements of our inductees truly humble us all. Each of us who participated in these elections had worked directly with a few of you apiece. But even in those cases, and in many more cases when we had no prior acquaintance at all, we got to know you better by marveling, for example, at your transcripts, extraordinary not just because of all those A's, but because you triumphed in your major's toughest classes and resisted or mostly resisted the siren call of the easiest distros. You honed musical and creative crafts as Candice LeBlanc, Sarah Kobeck, and Joshua Henderson did. And in Elizabeth Hawley's case, you curated your own public art exhibit. You learned languages, studied abroad, and used eclectic coursework to make rich contact with world cultures, as Reed McLaughlin, April Peng, and Luke Simarusti modeled for all of us. Sarah Malik, another language learner and avid globetrotter, also managed a co-authorship on a major scholarly publication at the same time, and thus stands alongside Jinming Zhang, Jeremy Brooks, Sandra Freeman, and many other precocious researchers in this group. You all elevated people's lives beyond your own. And you've honestly become celebrities to us and to the faculty who went out of their way to trumpet abilities and victories that you all tend to downplay, which of course only deepens our admiration. So many of you devoted yourselves to sophisticated knowledge production on topics of obvious, poignant value in this beleaguered world. I felt that when I learned about Emily Guo's anthropology research into practices and politics around bilingualism in immigrant families, or from Desmond O'Shaughnessy's innovative on-site inquiries in Tanzania into spillover effects by which the schooling of one child does or does not boost their siblings' educations as well. For 15 minutes, mathematician Justin Lin's research made me feel I understood the intricate work of bound setting around classical multicolor Ramsey numbers. And closer to home for me, but no less bracing or detailed for all of us, were the abstracts I read of two research endeavors by historian Elizabeth Perkins, one about how awful, widely mischaracterized policies from US Reconstruction continued to constrain civil rights advances for decades after, and another about long-lasting legacies of segregation in Illinois schools. Many inductees have similarly pursued these kinds of scholarly interventions around national politics, around distorted pasts, and around planetary well-being. Sometimes you unearthed expansive radicalities in what too many people dismiss as small communities or niche practices. I'm thinking, for example, of Gabrielle Grossman and what she achieves in her inspiring studies of Jewish vegetarianism and its profound ties to justice on multiple fronts. Other efforts required amassing and analyzing data that nobody thought was extant, much less extractable. But that didn't stop the multilingual Dominic Balistrieri-Fox's eye-opening study of the complicities of conservation efforts with militarized security forces on multiple continents. Often your labors were even more directly political, as witness Alex Neumann's energetic immersion in local, state, and national political campaigns, or Mara Kelly's on and off-campus involvements that inspired multiple professors toward declamations like this one. I've never met an undergraduate student as committed as she is to participating in democracy and making change happen. Such undertakings are not the only ways of showing deep devotion to our world, its rescue, and actual or potential bonds among its people. Cassandra Thomas, I sensed those values at work when I read about you marshaling your astonishing acumen for financial modeling to the benefit of nonprofit museums and urban medical centers. Sean Hu, I had no idea what spherical nucleic acids were, much less their protein core versions, but when I read that you're exploring new ways that they might better catalyze cancer treatments, my humanities-trained heart just leapt. And with that confession that half of my brain significantly outperforms the other, I give you just one reason why I bow to the ambidextrous intellects of Emma Eder, who majored in math and philosophy, or Louis Tauber, a student of art history and of science in human culture. Speaking of elasticity, how about Huiling Chen's ability to flourish as a student abroad in Germany and France and South Korea? Or Trent Steelman's capacity to balance degrees in history and math without relinquishing his seat as principal trumpet player in Northwestern's Philharmonic Orchestra. Or Stephanie Mbita's gift for exploring a wide range of ideas, affects, and tensions through travels and letter writing, and her study of economics, and her renowned skill as a dancer. So I can hear some of you through the internet starting to ask, how did I get inducted alongside these kinds of superstars? And modesty is indeed the best quality, but none of you need to ask this. Not you, Aubrey Roberts, described by a professor as a promising neuroscientist, remarkable student athlete, and genuinely good human being. Not you, Erica Barrios, whose intellect, decency, and knack for research are the stuff of interoffice legend around the English department. Not you, Nick Karras, whose brilliance as a young mathematician extends to your personal and pedagogical generosity toward your peers and to incoming students. And certainly not to you, Jai Chen, Bennett Eckert, Christopher Mortensen, or William Peck. Those four include a global health student, a philosopher, an astrophysicist, and an American Studies major cum stand-up comedian. But they share at least one thing in common, which is that multiple faculty tripped over themselves to make sure we would all know how special they are. June Cho, you are among the 3 top students one linguistics faculty member has ever mentored in 30 years. Hida Verholt, you are one of the best statistics students another professor feels they have taught in 40 years. Fina Brady, you are a math prodigy like few have ever met. Chi Chow, Brody, Lydia, Lois, Owen, Myrna, Alexis, Eitan, Rohan, Ella, Panyaniet, Bella, Jeanne, Martha, Saeed, Maylin, to you and your families, and to all whose names I still can't squeeze into my time limit, it was a sincere pleasure for us to meet you, whether in person or by reputation, on this campus that you so obviously improved over the years we shared it. Eliza, Shreyas, Grace, Shiki, Kirti, Jana, Hannah, Matthew, Miles, Mari, Camille, Catherine, Andrew, Emily, Sohyun, Joseph, our juniors. I hold out hope of encountering you sooner, since we at least have another year, whatever that year is going to look like, to pull this off. Honestly, it is the ghost orchid, the lost horizon, the perpetually tilted at windmill of Phi Beta Kappa to actually reunite our elected juniors for some fellowship and mutual learning. The factors that prevented that this winter and spring may or may not still bedevil us next year, but if there are 2 things you have all exhibited, they are creative workarounds and the fortitude to overcome impediments. So let's agree to try. Finally, in the interest of celebration, I have deferred dwelling directly on the grievous and ongoing siege states that preoccupy us all these days, and on which most conversations rightly center. I'm talking, of course, about viral invasions and extralegal violence, subatomic chaos, and superstructural cruelty. The first is linked to Nicholas Chen's work in biology and chemistry labs. The latter to Grant Glazebrook's anti-racist, anti-poverty scholarship and policy work. For all of us who elected you and everyone else, your devotion to these forms and many other forms of knowledge and progress really did offer us rays of hope across these months of deep sequester, and amid recent weeks of what I would call electrifying dissidence against forms of discriminatory power that might actually finally start to decompose. For those of us, faculty and students, who struggled this quarter with what it meant under this new mode to be in school, who took leaps of faith that learning was still happening in far-flung communities bereft of bodily co-presence with each other. To read about you all was to experience and to trust without any doubt that learning was taking place. I, of course, felt more like your pupil as I learned about you than as your teacher, but it's clear that you all have inspired exactly that feeling in faculty mentors well before the quarantine. We all know you won't just bring the world back to normal. We trust you all to remake it in your own better image. Thank you so much. And with that, it falls to me to have to adjourn the meeting. I'll just mark things that Adrian and Deborah and Beth have all said today, which is that one of our favorite moments at this event every year is getting to meet your families, getting to meet the students that we have come to admire so much on the page and sometimes in person, and just getting to celebrate what you've all accomplished. And as Dean Randolph said, I include this as the family's accomplishment, the siblings' accomplishment. It always takes a whole team. So I hope you're celebrating in the groups with which you're watching this. We will all continue to think of you. Don't hold back from dropping us a line anytime you want to, soon, or whenever the mood might strike as the years go by. But huge congratulations, seniors and juniors, classes of 2020 and 2021. It was our real honor to be with you today.
Congratulations and thank you.